Okay, well that explains our last night.
That's hard.
Why am I driving?
Well, she's probably lucky she has you in there too.
Yeah. We just left it on the default sunrise to sunset.
So she has family.
All right.
Doesn't rely on
We'll
this
call the
yet.
meeting to order at 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the roll.
Alder Holmquist. Here. Mr. Homburg.
Here?
Ms. Fallett. Here. Mr. Grice. Here. Mr. Conrad.
Present.
Alder Moore, Mr. Stein, and Ms. Fox are excused.
All right. Can we get an approval of the minutes for August 22nd, 2022?
I'll move approval.
Second.
No, second.
All right. Any edits? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. I don't see anybody here for the appearance section. Is there anybody on Zoom who wishes to appear regarding anything that is not agended tonight? Seeing none, we'll close the appearance section, moving on to 5A. And I'll try to be efficient with our time because we have a lot of content. A lot of these are public hearing and some kind of doubled up, either public hearing and consideration or public hearing and some other aspects. So we'll try to be as efficient as we can. We'll start with 5A, which is a public hearing on a request by Galloway Companies for an approval of a sign permit for future signage and a pylon sign improvement at 2101 Broadway. This is case number S12-2022. And who do we have on tonight with us?
Ross from Steppers.
Wonderful. Can you give us an overview of what you have proposed?
Sure. So we want to take the existing pylon sign on site and basically just give it a little bit of a facelift. Some new kind of trim boards, top and bottom of the existing floor and decor sign that you can see there. And then we'd also like to add a second cabinet below that, which would be a little bit smaller, as you can see, for the future tenant of the facade that we were just approved for a couple weeks ago here as well. So.
Perfect. Is there anybody else here that wishes to speak at the public hearing section? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, moving on to 5B, which is a consideration of action on the request by Galloway Companies, Inc. for approval of a sign permit for future signage and a pylon sign improvement at 2101 West Broadway, case S12-2022. Doug.
Thank you. So, as mentioned, this is building on the zoning permit that was approved at the last meeting. Condition number 3 of that zoning permit did require a separate sign permit be obtained from the Planning Commission for any new signage. The applicant would like to have clarity and certainty over that second tenant panel, the signage components of that. So it was recommended, even though the content of the sign itself is still TBD, depending upon that future tenant, that the improvements, the cabinet itself be approved by the commission. So that was why it was recommended to come back for additional consideration. So the pylon sign, the sign code itself allows these to be constructed of decorative poles or poles enclosed in decorative enclosures. Bare metal, wood, or other poles are not permitted. And the pylon sign parcel map shows which parcels in the city are allowed to have pylon signs, with this being one of them. The maximum height in the community design district, this zoning district, is 30 feet, and maximum area of 200 square feet. And they should be constructed of materials complementary to the building facade, as well as integrated with site landscaping. So the materials closely match the revised store facade and give a clear update to the existing sign. The new panel is 3 foot 2 inches tall and 19 feet 10 inches wide, which equates to just under 63 square feet. And the primary sign is 152 square feet. That is existing, and there are no changes proposed other than the trim to that sign. So the applicant would be seeking about a 15 square foot exception to that, although the height does comply. The only other element to discuss is the landscaping. At the previous discussion of this at the CSP for the floor and decor, it was deemed not necessary to be included, but the Commission may just choose to discuss that, and if it is applicable in this instance, the staff recommendation is approval with the findings of fact and conditions of approval as listed. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Doug. Is there anything else from the applicant that they would like to share before we get started?
I don't believe so. Steve didn't have any other words for me for that.
All right. Wonderful. We'll start with Chris, number 1.
Okay. We talked about this last time it was here. I still think it's appropriate. I would have 2 minor suggestions. That finding fact number 2, we talk about and is deemed an appropriate reason to grant a smaller second sign panel for future use, because that's clearly, we're not allowing it to be the same size as the secondary use. We want a smaller panel, which isn't in, it works with this. I just don't want somebody else coming back and say, well, panel's a panel. And then for condition 2, I would recommend we strike the copy within. Based on that recent Supreme Court ruling, we have some limited ability to approve certain copy. We certainly can look at colors, make sure everything looks good, and there's some approvals, but I think it'd read better if we just say approval for the second panel shall return. And that leaves it a little more open.
I think the only intention there, and I certainly agree with the point, maybe it's just wordsmithing, but it was just to make sure that the actual square footage, the 63 square feet or whatever, is conceptually approved for the applicant. That was very important to them, but certainly.
I agree with that. I just, for whenever it comes back, whoever is here, to make it a little clearer, I think.
Yep.
But other than that, I think it improves the look of the sign. I'm open to the landscaping question. Right now, it's pretty benign. There's going to be those improved posts coming up with the decorative coatings. I'm not sure if we landscape there, are we just trying to draw attention to those, or do you want to keep them like they are and just let grass be around there? When it's a landscape ground sign, it's to hug the sign into the turf. In this case, we're not hugging anything into the turf or trying to pull it down in. In fact, it's the opposite. So for me, I guess I'm okay either way, but I probably wouldn't require landscaping at the base because we're not tying it to anything.
All right. Corinne?
I think it looks great. I also didn't feel that landscaping is necessary. I mean, if you wanted to do that, that would be fine, but I don't think it's required. As far as the comment on the second condition of approval, we could leave it as Chris suggested, or else just say approval for the typeface, because I think that's what it's not.
It's a little different. There's a Supreme Court ruling that we can't control what a sign says or how it says it. Now, we can control colors. As you know, on our landscape ground signs, we want all those panels to be the same color. We want things to be coordinated. So we have some limited ability, but it's really hard for us to say you have to use Roman font versus some other font versus Arial. We really don't have that ability.
But I think it looks great. I don't have any problems with what's proposed.
Chris, number 2.
I'm fine with the sign. I'm fine with the no landscaping. I'm good.
All right. Brandon?
Yep. No additional comment. I'm fine with the sign as well.
Yeah, and Doug and I, the reason Doug and I thought it was important to bring it back is we talked about it, but when we went back and reviewed the minutes, or the proposed minutes from our last meeting, it was clear that we weren't necessarily taking specific action on this item, and we wanted to make sure it was clear within minutes, and it was clear for the applicant so they could move forward with the improvements on the pylon without any question of it being approved. So, all right, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move approval of findings of fact as written. 1 is written by staff. Finding of fact number 2 to read the existing pylon sign will be improved as part of the process and is deemed an appropriate reason to grant a smaller second tenant panel for future use. Condition 3 is written, or finding of fact 3 is written. Condition 1 is written. And condition 2, approval for the second panel shall return as part of the signage request for the future tenant.
All right, is there a second?
I would second that.
Any discussion? Any question from the applicant before we vote?
No.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We will move on to item 5C, which is a public hearing on the request by Arving USA, represented by Bowman Consulting Group, LTD, for approval of additional materials and follow-up to the approved zoning permit conditions at 6501 Monona Drive. This is case 225-2022. Who do we have here tonight to give us an overview?
Good evening. You've got Eric Hansch from the DeWitt Law Firm, along with Damon from Bowman Consulting. I think, if you recall, we were here at the May 23rd Plan Commission meeting to talk about some issues with the zoning permit for the Chipotle site on Runoff Drive.
All right, do you want to walk us through what you're proposing here tonight?
Sure. Payman, do you want to take the lead with the changes that we made to address there were 3 conditions of approval that were required to go back to the Plan Commission. Two of them were the signage and striping plans to help direct the customers of the restaurant to move in kind of a counterclockwise fashion around the site and avoid kind of confusion among the customers. And then the other consideration was some revisions to the lighting plan. And like I said, I'll let Payman take the lead on the specific changes there.
Okay, that sounds good. Good evening, everyone. If I may, I was going to go ahead and share my screen if I could. And can everybody see my? So basically, as Eric mentioned, a couple items that we talked about basically was we added the sidewalk going alongside of the north side of the restaurant all the way to the existing sidewalk on the west side of the building, and as indicated on the same plan sheet. There was also one other location, which was this sidewalk was existing previously. This was by the bike rack area. And also on the site plan, we added the bump out. This was, as discussed, to prevent vehicles going north and kind of like guide the guests basically going into the pickup area. We did a quick fire truck movements to make sure the fire truck can access the existing building on the west side, the commercial building. But the bump out is basically far enough to prevent people from going in with the stops that basically do not enter sign. But we wanted to make sure fire truck can access the existing building. At the same time, if the fire truck is inside of the parking area facility, there is going to be room for the fire truck to exit out, traveling south. Another item that just following up what basically Eric mentioned is the lighting plan. We increased the foot candle alongside where the bike rack area is, and also just slightly increased the foot candle alongside of the proposed sidewalk going northeasterly direction as connected to the existing sidewalk. The one other item that was discussed previously was to reduce the color temperature from 4,000 to 3,000 Kelvin. And so the new photometric is based on 3,000 Kelvin. One item that we will provide is, and this is just basically an excerpt from the existing condition. The photometric is based on, it is LED, but it's different kind of a fixture, and we'll update that based on the gooseneck style that is currently in the development. Very similar to what's existing in the development. With that, Eric, did I cover everything? Is there any other items that, there was I think one item about extending the conduit for future EV vehicles, and then so this piece, we're anticipating that maybe this will be in the EV previously, so there is an exit proposed conduit available, but then we also added conduit, basically dry conduit for future EV reservation area. And then we'll keep so with that, turn that over back to Eric.
Yeah, that was very comprehensive. Thank you, Pam.
Thanks.
All right, is there anybody else to speak in the public hearing section regarding this proposal? All right, seeing none, we will close 5C and go on to 5D, which is the consideration of action on the request by Ardling USA, represented by Bowman Consulting Group LTD, for the approval of additional materials and follow-up to the approved zoning permit conditions 6501 Monroe Drive, Case 2, 25-2022. Doug.
Thanks. So, as mentioned, this request is to address outstanding conditions of approval from the November 2021 and May 2022 zoning permits. The property itself is located within the Community Design District, CDD, and a zoning permit is required due to the new construction and new uses that are requested, and the Plan Commission reviews requests within this district. The photometric plan has been included in the meeting packet. The revisions that were mentioned, there are still 11 fixtures in total. The warmer color temperature was adjusted based on recommendations from the meeting in May, and I understand, as mentioned, the applicant is looking into those gooseneck fixtures. I understand their lighting contractor is backed up at the moment. They are aware of that and the Commission's wishes for that, and it's suggested that that may be an administrative item for a revised photometric based upon those fixtures to be reviewed administratively if the Commission is comfortable with that. From the site circulation perspective, this now includes the bump out that was discussed in May of 2022. There's regulatory signage as well as striping for do not enter to keep the anti-clockwise traffic flow. Also, the fire truck has been modeled as mentioned so that it can still circle through the site. Additionally, extra site striping has also been included for the digital pickup ahead on the ground, directing vehicles in addition to the signage, which is part of a later discussion tonight. The pedestrian routes were also discussed at previous meetings. The ADA curb ramps still remain between the two buildings and connecting to the sidewalks. And there is now the additional sidewalk at sort of the northwest corner connecting to the building to the west and giving another option to get back towards West Broadway. It is worth mentioning there are a couple additional conditions that are still going to be worked on, and the applicant is aware of those. They are administrative items, so we'll be working with those in the next couple of weeks. They are aware of them, and we'll be working to get those addressed. With that, the recommendation is approval with the two conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
All right. Corey?
I think this looks good. I really like the pedestrian walk circulation pattern through the site. I think that is really going to be helpful and useful. I really thought this looked good, and I think the additional striping or the text on the ground is going to help as well. I think that's a good addition. The only question I really had was, I'm not sure, I was a little confused if we would talk about it as part of this one or the next one, but the directional signs to West Broadway or Monona Drive.
Those are the signs and striping are the next one, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I will wait on that. But I thought this looked good.
All right. Chris, number 2.
This looks good. I appreciate you switching the color temperature to a warmer temperature. It's a pet peeve of mine when I see cold temperature lights. I also appreciate you doing the electrical vehicle charging conduit. I can't remember if I mentioned this when you met with us last time, but my only comment would be a reminder that when you put an electrical vehicle charging station right next to your building, inevitably people without an EV will park there. There's actually an expression for it. It's called getting iced. ICE is an internal combustion engine. It's when someone with their gasoline car parks in the electrical vehicle charging spot because it's so close and convenient to the building. So I like that you put another conduit in the, I think, the northeast corner, and I hope you use it. That's all I got. Thanks.
All right, Brandon.
No other additional comment. I also agree with the walkway lighting. And everything else.
All right. Yeah, it seemed to take the feedback that we gave at the last meeting and put it all into action. Is there a consideration? Oh, sorry, Chris, number one.
I'm good.
Uh-oh.
I would mimic what you just said. I appreciate you hit all the things we asked for and looked at, and it looks really good. So I'm fine.
All right. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move approval with conditions as written by staff.
All right. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Take your pick. Any other comments? Any questions from the applicant before we vote? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to item 6E, or I'm sorry, 5E, which is a, yeah, okay. 5E, sorry, my packet all got out of order, which is the public hearing request by Arlen Ring, represented by Bowman Consulting Group, for the approval of additional site signage at 6501 Monona Drive. This is case S13-2022. So this is a public hearing section. If you can just give us an overview of the sign package that you have in front of us, and we'll go from there.
Great, thanks again. Good evening, everyone. For the purpose of signage, we prepared a signage and traffic plan as a separate standalone plan. With this, actually, let me, I'm sorry, is that okay if I share my screen with you?
Sure.
And putting everyone, but just a little bit easier to point out.
Yeah.
So this is our signage instruction plan, as it was indicated earlier, with the bump out, we're providing a do not enter sign, and that would guide all the guests basically to enter into the site area. We added the flow arrows, basically the directional arrow through the site. And basically guide everyone through the site. We actually have stop sign, there's a stop sign here and a stop on, and pickup area through the pickup window area. There are two additional signs basically on the east side, just on the opposite side of the pickup window area, and those are indicated as a food pickup sign. And this was one of the comments, I believe, 12 by 8. Those signs are detailed as, let's see, basically burrito loading zone, and this basically this will be added it would be posted in front of the pickup areas. What else? There are also directional sign as basically to the as the guests are leaving. We would have basically a sign here indicated that West Broadway would be to the right side and Monona Drive would be to the left side. And with that basically concludes the sign area.
I think it would be helpful for people to note that when you look at the two items from 5C and D and 5E and F, if you merge the two sets of plans together, it will make a heck of a lot more sense too. The plans that we have connected with 5D and E don't show the bump out. They miss some of the details, so I'm glad that you pulled it up on the screen. It helped clarify a lot of the questions I had regarding some of the signage. So thank you for doing that. I think it will help us.
And the burrito.
I don't see the burrito.
The burrito.
Loading.
That's me. All right. We will close the 5E public hearing section and move on to 5F, which is the consideration of action on the request by Arving USA, represented by Bowman Consulting Group Ltd, for the approval of additional site signage at 6501 Monona Drive, case S13-2022. Doug.
Thank you. The request here is the revised sign plans addressing changes and additions to the comprehensive sign plan, which was approved in July of 2022. The main condition of that was that additional signage returned for further review and approval by the Planning Commission, specifically the on-site directional signage, the digital pickup element. The main point there is that has been modified to include arrows only directing to the east, to the right, rather than in previous iterations it had both left and right arrows, which may have been confusing, which coupled with the bump out should help with the site circulation. The entire packet was included the wall signs and some of the other elements, the ground sign. None of those have changed, and none of that is being proposed as anything different from what was approved. As far as the on-site directional sign, it can have a maximum of 4 square feet area and a maximum post-mounted height of 4 feet. The sign is proposed at 4 feet tall with text totaling about 2 square feet. And again, it's intended to address some of the traffic conflicts that may have arisen and is directing traffic to the right only in this instance. Additional directional signage is proposed, as was just pointed out by the applicant. That's being discussed throughout the process for this, that just getting back to West Broadway and Monona Drive may be a little tricky, just getting out of River Place from there. And so very much expected there will be regulatory signage, and so again, if there's any issue there, suggested that be considered administratively. The order pickup signs, 2 12-inch by 18-inch pickup signs are shown again on the far east side. Those designs were not included, but again, if there's any issue, they could be considered administratively. They're on the screen at the moment. There was some previous discussion of that that type of element on its own may not necessitate coming back, as long as it's sort of is mounted correctly and meets those elements. So something else for consideration. And again, the plans include additional traffic control signs, which much more regulatory in nature, but it includes stop sign, do not enter, as well as the directional arrows, which again should just assist with site circulation. So with that, staff recommendation is approval with the 4 conditions as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2.
I haven't checked all their homework or whatever, but by virtue of the fact that staff is recommending approval, this looks good to me. I'm fine.
All right, Brandon.
Yeah, except for just I think this is more of an administrative issue, kind of the compiling the information is a little bit disheveled, and the background, that's from, the Jones sign background doesn't, match some of the updates that we made. So if even just some of those things administratively could just be sorted out in terms of the clarity of the packet of information, the content is fine.
Chris?
I think the on-site Chipotle signage is fine. I think the entry, that stuff's still really confusing. Maybe you could explain to me what 9 and 10 are. They're just like massive highway signs, 4 feet by 2 feet, that go left and right at the same location, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Anyone?
Okay. Sure, and that was a sign number, which one was it?
9
number
and 10
4.
on our packet from the earlier approval. And it shows 9 and 10, which are like 4 foot by 2 foot highway signs. One's a left arrow and one's a right. And I'm not sure they're appropriate where they're shown. I'm not sure what we're trying to do with them.
I think those are the signs that were directing traffic to the right if they want to go to Monona Drive, and to the left if they want.
Well, that's not what it looks like on the detail. It just looks like highway signage, W16, W1, they're both W16 split. I guess I'll get at what I think should be there. On the back side, that's the sign that's shown there, but the 9 and 10 are shown. I really think what we need here, right in that location, would be a sign that should have your name on it, your logos, Chipotle, right. So people understand if they want to go to Chipotle, they turn right there. And then we can't say do not enter with that stop bar, because the people for your neighbor have to go through there and go left. So when we get up to that bump out, there has to be a do not enter to go straight, but there has to be an allowance for somebody to come into their driveway and go left. So I don't know how you want to sign that, but the way it's right now, I would think I couldn't even come into that building that way, because it basically says do not enter. So I think there's got to be some massaging, and do you see what I'm talking about, Doug?
I do.
So if you're talking about this administratively, really, where 9 and 10 are, the backside might show you go to Broadway or Monroe Drive just for directional for people, that's fine, but the front side should be something with your, a nice thing with your logo on it so people understand what they're seeing. Chipotle, right. So that people all understand if they want to go to Chipotle, they go right at that location. I think that would be a lot better for you. I think it'd be a lot less confusing for people who are coming to your site for the first or second time. But then we have to have some way that people coming into the attorney's office knows they can still go to the left. And that might be in that bump out. Maybe we've got to have a left turn arrow and maybe no through traffic or something like that. But we can't come in and just say do not enter. People will be confused. The reason I say that because it's before Fox's driveway, right? It's before the attorney's driveway. So if we have a do not enter before their driveway, then the attorneys are going to think, well, gee whiz, that's a joint access easement. How come they can eliminate my traffic from coming in there? That's what I would do if I were sitting in that building. So somehow we need signage that's a little clearer that says no through traffic would seem like it would work for me if we're going to put in that location, or we could put that one down further as a do not enter towards the end of your bump out before it comes back in, if you know what I mean, so that people know they can't come in there, but before that, a left turn only sign or something that people know they can go left and still go into your neighbors that you share that driveway with. I know Doug's nodding yes. Am I making sense to what you're hearing? It's hard when you can't see my hands moving.
Yes, no, I appreciate it, and it definitely does make sense. If you're okay with it, maybe no through traffic makes sense, right? Because then we're not really saying left turn or right turn only or any of those. No through traffic. I think that prevents it. That's a great suggestion. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Perhaps there'd be at that point a left turn only sign also or something. They could be on the same post even, but just so people know that if they're that far along, they can only go left. And I understand your delivery truck might come through to make deliveries and stuff, but that's not the general public. We're signing for the general public. To me, that would make a lot more sense, and I don't think I'm not sure if that's striping that you're suggesting or what, but it looks like a stop bar that says do not enter on that plan, and we wouldn't want that there. You could put that further up by where that hexagon that says 7 is. In that location, you could put a do not enter or something if you want to put it there. But that way you're not stopping your neighbor from accessing their property.
Yeah.
And then I would suggest probably just, you have your right turn only arrow going into Chipotle. When you get up to that point, put a left turn arrow there. I know it's for your neighbor, but you're kind of causing this traffic readjustment, and they seem to have been pretty good about it. At least we haven't heard any comments from them, have we?
No.
So they seem to be going along, but I mean, just to make sure people understand how to still get into their property.
Sure.
And
absolutely. That definitely makes sense.
I think if you and Doug and I all understand each other, that could be handled administratively, but it's just, it would make more sense. And typically, we don't want people to put their name on too many signs, but in the case of that right turn into your property, I think it'd be really important to make sure you got your logo there with a right arrow, because that way people that are looking for Chipotle, they know your logo, right?
They can turn this.
They might ignore a traffic sign or something, but they see that Chipotle logo and you're going right, man, they're heading that way, right? It would make more sense to me.
In the same location.
I agree. That makes sense.
That location, or even, that location, maybe even just a tweak north, just like, no, if you're going to Chipotle, you turn here.
You go this way, right?
And then everybody knows this is how you get to Chipotle. They can come back out through the back, of course, anybody can, but to get in there, they got to take a right-hand turn there. But the traffic can still go straight long enough to get into your neighbors. I just don't want people to think they can't get into your neighbors.
No, absolutely. That's definitely a valid question, a valid comment. No, that makes sense.
And if we didn't change, I think your neighbor would probably make a phone call and say, hey, how come you're shutting traffic off?
No, we really like our neighbors and definitely want to be
they seem
a
very
good
chill.
neighbor. So
They've never even showed up here, have they?
No.
Do they recall? Yeah, they've been really good neighbors. So.
no,
Okay.
absolutely. We like to keep that relation as you. So definitely.
For me, that's the biggest thing about the signage, and I don't think we need to, any of these signs, make them look like they're highway signs. Highway signs are made so that when you're going 45, 55 miles an hour, you can see them clearly. Hopefully, people are going 10 miles an hour here, so I think more tasteful signage like you have on your site could be very appropriate for these other signs too, when you look at them. I don't think we put in 3x3 highway signs and things. I think it distracts from, you have a very attractive property. I mean, I like your building looks really good, your signage looks really crisp and nice. I hate to detract from that by right at your entryway putting up highway signage that just looks garish and general and doesn't look like your restaurant.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Absolutely.
So,
Yes,
so
it
think
does.
you can
I appreciate
massage
it.
those a
That
little
makes-
bit to get what we want to do, but let it fit and, make it attractive right at your entry.
Okay, will do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Thank you
think
for the
maybe I
feedback.
gave you the wrong impression that we had to have highway signage or something. That's not the case. We're at very low speeds here.
Okay.
Corey, or any more?
Not that I can think of at this moment.
Corey?
I also had a question about 9 and 10. I agree they're enormous. And then I was confused if they were going to say, like in words, to West Broadway and to Monona Drive, or just an arrow with the, like you have on the yellow box, you have arrow West Broadway, arrow Monona Drive, but then on the key, it's just the arrow. So I wasn't really sure. And then I didn't know if there was any concern about the fact that the Monona Drive traffic was requiring U-turns down at the, like if someone wants to go to Monona Drive and they exit out, they have to go down and make a U-turn to go back the other way. I didn't know if that was an issue, if anyone had looked at that.
That's why they're showing that Winona.
Right. So they'd have, I just didn't know if Doug has shared with the.
Well, that would,
it
oh, you mean to go to Broadway? You mean the one to go,
this way.
okay.
To go
To
northbound.
go north
Gotcha.
of Monona Drive, they have to come out and go right, like towards the Beltline, but if they want to go north, they have to do that U-turn down at the bottom and head up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that's a weird
Yeah,
thing to-
they'd be better off going the other direction, taking a right and get to the stoplight. Totally agree.
So it would say, instead of to Monona Drive, it would say to 1218 or to
Yeah,
Beltline or something.
that's a good idea.
To West Beltline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
West
great
Beltline.
idea.
So that was my only concern with that. So
Yeah.
I'd be fine with you working with Doug on that. I don't think that needs to come back necessarily, but then I also just wasn't sure about the U-turn sign, number 7. And maybe that makes sense, but are you thinking cars will come down and want to take a U-turn back to go, like they want to park and they realize that they went too far?
I think they're showing the sign the wrong direction. I think it's for people, yeah, I think that's what's for. We asked them, we don't want somebody, we already got the do not enter, but somebody does not enter. We didn't want to make any U-turn to try to get in there quick, but I don't know, I'm with you, I don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't know that that one's necessary. Maybe it's too many signs.
Yeah.
Number 7, do you know what I'm talking about?
I think that was our initial intent to prevent people from, and I'm thinking, to your point, you're totally correct. I think that was from previous when we had the through traffic. This was before the bump out. And we were thinking just to make sure nobody's going to make that shortcut going through the, pickup window. Now, at this point, since we have the do not enter, I think that sign can be eliminated.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But that's basically the U-turn was for the pickup window, so nobody goes through and then try to do a shortcut for pickup window.
I think that's a terrific point, because if they've gotten that far, they've already ignored the signage, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but otherwise, like I said before, I think the pavement markings are going to be helpful, and I thought the striping looked good and everything, so no other comments.
All right, I just want to verify because the different sets of plans show slightly different. The plan that is the Jones sign plan, the item that was listed as DL2, which was originally the triangular post directional signage, from my understanding, that's now gone. Do I have that correct?
That's included. It's part of this one.
All right, so it still is the pickup window.
That was my read.
Oh, Yes, so basically it is still the pickup window area. Is that what the question was? So I'm not. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I didn't miss it.
If I may, I think that sign will now, based on what I'm understanding from feedback from the Plan Commission here, is that will say instead of pickup window entrance, it'll basically say Chipotle enter here, because now all of the traffic is going that way rather than allowing two-way traffic north of that bump.
Exactly. Yes, that is definitely, yes, that is correct.
And to be clear, if I look in the Jones packet, originally the DL2, the digital pickup, showed a sign that was 6 inches wide and 4 feet high. My guess is if it's directing people for Chipotle this way, it's probably not going to be this sign. Because this sign wouldn't be big enough for your logo and to say Chipotle is this way.
Replacing that vertical triangle sign with a normal sign is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Although
Go for it, Doug.
it's confused things. My read was that 910 on the Bowman signage and striping plan, that one with the arrows, West Broadway, Monona Drive, that was going to be a small rectangular sign with Chipotle on the south face as you're entering, directing people to the right. On the other side, as you're exiting, showing the arrows to the two main streets, however that is written. But that was going to be to the south. The DL2 is near the bump out. I don't know if it's almost duplicative to have a second of that. Showing Chipotle right turn. Just to clarify, that was my understanding. The little rectangular sign was going to be where 910 is, to the south side. I don't know, just to make sure whether that bump out also has something similar.
And I think to that point, if on the signage of 910 on the back side of it, which seemed to make sense to indicate Chipotle's to the right, I believe DL2 wouldn't need to be there of that little sliver of a sign to say digital pickup, because you've already directed all of Chipotle traffic to the right.
Okay. Yes, I think the 9 and 10 definitely makes sense. I'm looking at the plan. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the camera, but I mean that definitely helps everybody as they come in to have the Chipotle sign going to the right side. That makes sense. And then on the back side of it, as they're exiting, it would say West Broadway, and then it will modify that to right and Monona Drive to the left. That definitely makes a lot. That makes a great use of this same signpost. Yes, and then the sign size is 48-inch, 4 feet. That's definitely excessive, and we'll reduce those size, both of those, and utilize the same sign. I think that those are valid comment. Yeah.
Chris?
It seems like at this location, the digital pickup feature is a big deal to them. So if they want to leave that digital sign in, and because they have other signs that are telling people where to go for digital pickup, so if they want to have one more in just saying digital pickup, it's not an offensive sign. I mean, it's just a little guidepost. Mm-hmm. So I would say for me, I'd leave it up to them. If that's important to them to have another digital sign there that's so small and unobtrusive, I'd let them have it.
And I think just for clarification, I'm not sure if we're all talking about the same thing. You're talking about this, there's two number 9s, and you're talking about the number 9 that's up by the bump out, by the do not enter stripe. Right, but there's another 9 right here.
Yeah.
So that's where the digital pickup triangle
That's
would
it.
be.
Yeah, if you look at the Bowman plan, or the Jones plan, that's where the DL2 actually is shown.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I think we're squared away here. As long as Doug is squared away, I think we're good. Chris?
I think we're squared away, and I think the motion will talk about, with the revisions as discussed tonight, as approved by staff, and if staff has any questions, then staff brings it back. But if we're clear tonight, and the applicant's clear, and it all goes together well, and staff says, yeah, this is what we talked about, staff can approve it. But if it gets muddy, then I'd recommend you bring it back.
Yep. I'll work with the applicant to get a final plan, and we're all on the same page. Yep. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move approval with conditions as recommended by staff, and add condition 5 that signage, this approval includes the signage revisions as discussed 9/12/22 with final approval by staff.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further comments? Any questions from the applicant? None? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to item 5G, which is a public hearing on the request from Bund City Schools for approval of modifications to the approved zoning permit at 1707 West Broadway, case 2/24/2022.
Nobody has all the stuff isolated the way it's supposed to be between these two packets.
And let's see. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good, you all.
Good. And David, are you going to walk us through?
I'll probably have Tammy do that since she's worked on the design and better at speaking that lingo than I am. But so without further ado, I'll let you go ahead, Tammy. But I want to say it's really good to see you all again. And just a quick note on the school, you guys. It's been a lot of fun. We've gotten off to a good start, and we're just really grateful to be there. So I just wanted to let you all know that how we're doing.
Good evening. This is Tammy McCullough from JLA Architects. Once again, it's good to see all of you as well. We do have some new members. So I'm the project manager for this project for JLA Architects. We do have other project managers, one for Findorf, but he's not on the call right now. Basically, we have two pieces that we are returning for. The first one is unfinished business. That's how Douglas put it. Basically, we've been through a couple different visits last fall, and the final one was in November, and it dealt with the turnaround that was requested at the end of the north-south section of the Ring Road, as it used to be called. It has yet to be renamed, but we're working on that. And none of that, we are not proposing any of that be changed as it was approved. We are just asking for an extension of when that can be installed. We stumbled upon some additional maintenance issues that needed to be addressed this year. There are issues with just getting contractors and procuring materials. Has been a joyful experience the past year, but and then which you'll hear in the pre-hearing, which is a couple items down on the agenda, we have been rethinking the front entry from the surface parking lots of the building that we would like to incorporate into our site improvement package, so that there's economy in scale and price and time, if we can do that all at the same time. So our proposal is to extend this out so that we can get this, depending on your comments on the pre-hearing piece, we can get that rolled into the site package, get that bid out, and be ready to go as soon as the frost thaws out in the spring. So that is the first item that we are returning for. The second one has to do with the shed requirement for the permanent playground location. And I believe in your packets you have kind of a site plan for that. Let me just look here. And I can share my screen so we can all be looking at the same thing. There was a letter there too. One of the things I know that will be some concern, enrollment did increase by a few grades this fall. And the letter that we included with the application We did provide you with the number of students, and the One City School has adopted a slightly different pickup. Pickup was the hardest part, I think, was last year. It was the most congested, and that was only grades K through 4. So they realized that there was some issues there, and so they are now requesting that parents park in the parking structure and come in to pick up their children inside the school. I think the pickup at the curb was more of a result of pandemic conditions, and so now that they're starting to get away from that, they're finding it would be much better, and it's a better way to get the parents back, connected with each other and with others in the school, which was kind of lost during the pandemic, which is a huge part of One City School's culture. So, so that is, we can kind of come back and talk on the numbers, but we provided the numbers of students. So far, it's been what, a week and a half? It's over a week, David, and how's it working?
We're on day 6, yeah. We're on
Okay,
about
day 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, the intent is that even with the traffic flow, because there would be, they have staggered drop-off times, they have staggered pickup times, but as the enrollment grows, they can see that bulb is definitely going to be useful and helpful, and so we're not trying to back out of that at all. We've found a way to operate temporarily until we can get that installed. And then, like I said, the second item was for the playground, and I'm going to share my screen so that we can all look at the same thing. Did everyone see that? It's the overall site plan?
Nope.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. A little bit of a lag. Let me know when you can see it.
Still nothing.
Still nothing, okay. Oh, hang on.
There we go.
One more button. Okay.
Yep. Now we
My screen was outlined, so I guess it needs to be in green. So as you can see, just a reminder, we got this area approved for our permanent playground location last fall. We have been moving forward with that because parents have been kind of pressuring. They would like to have a more secure, permanent location for their kids to play. And so we've been working on that. I believe the fence is now installed, and we did, One City School did partner with an arborist to help identify junk trees versus trees we would really like to keep. And in so doing, this very large cottonwood tree was identified, and that's kind of where we kind of snugged up against that with our original location of the site of the playground, and that's where the shed was, and so trying to kind of accommodate this very beautiful tree. It is part of the beginning of their stewardship of the wooded area. We kind of moved it down. The trees that were surrounding this patio were starting to die, so they have been removed, and I believe they're, as we are looking at the landscaping plans, we are looking at replacing some of those trees, right, David? Yep.
That's
So,
true.
yep. And then, the shed location now is, instead of being down here, we have now tucked it in down here. And the shed's not there yet, but it's ready to go there if we can get approval on the location. But this is downhill somewhat from this area here, and then the road is downhill a little bit from this point. This is kind of like the higher point along this way. So it makes it a little more difficult to see from the road. And once the play structure is installed, hopefully in late October, early November, this will be even harder to see. We're proposing cedar siding, panel siding with a gray color and a black asphalt shingle roof for ease of maintenance. And like I said, it would be kind of tucked in here so that they can access the materials from inside the playground area. And then it's, it's more secure that way too, when everything's kind of closed off. So what you're seeing here is the same playground that was approved or proposed to you last fall. And then this is the wood chip area. We extended the wood chip area a little bit beyond the fence to help keep invasive weed growth from happening. And then this is going to be all kind of, we'll restore the grass here in the spring once they get done with the playground installation, because they'll be accessing this way to do the playground. So that is our unfinished business.
Wonderful. And we will close item 5G, which is the public hearing, and move on to 5H, which is the consideration of action on the request by One City Schools for the approval of the modifications to the approved zoning permit at 1707 West Broadway, Case 2, 24-2022. Doug.
Thank you. As way of a little bit of background here for the Commission, the Plan Commission approved the original zoning permit at their July 12th meeting in 2021. The applicant returned to the Commission in November of that same year with plans for revised site circulation, the addition of an outdoor playground, as well as the comprehensive sign plan. This addresses the elements approved in November with additional playground plans submitted, as well as the timeline extension. So I won't run through those details too much. The specific pickup drop-off operations are listed and included in the report. The main request there is to extend for the deadline for all these improvements to be in for the roadway by August 31st, 2023. No changes specifically are requested. As far as the site improvements for the playground area, the fence permit was approved by city staff in late August for that to be installed in time for the school year. The reasoning and the description of the playground was as listed because of the cottonwood and just the location, having reviewed that with the arborist. The shed plans themselves, it's a 10-foot by 12-foot shed with an approximate height of between 10 and 12 feet. Just as reference, the single-family, two-family zoning districts that we use for accessory structures, the maximum shed height would be 14 feet, 1/4, measured to the midpoint of the roof. So it fits within typical standards. And the proposed location, sort of on the southwest corner there of the playground, is going to be a little bit more hidden and recessed away from the street, just given the grade change as well. So with that, staff recommends approval with the 2 conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thanks.
Brent?
Thomas, can I get clarification real quick? Your staff report said cedar shingles, and we submitted asphalt. So I just wanted to clarify that our intent was to use asphalt shingles and not cedar.
Yep, that's my mistake.
It's like the last line of the last paragraph. No, I get it.
My mistake.
All right. Brendan.
No, I don't have any comment. I like it. Yep, I would move to approve it.
All right. Chris?
Actually, I like the fact that you ran school for a whole season. You kind of figured out how things work and how things don't work. I'm a big fan of using that parking ramp and that tunnel. You had the perfect asset there for pickup and safe traveling for the kids. I think that's a really smart move. I think a lot of these things are, as you've been functioning, you've found better ways to function. So I'm 100% in favor of that. As far as extending the timeline, I'm in favor of that. You're finding good ways to do this, and you're safe in operation while you're doing that. The playground shed, I like having it down the hill. What I would ask is where you show that planting area to the northwest of it, coordinate your plantings with Doug so that we have some nice things. I'm not saying you need to hide that shed, but certainly distract eyes from it. So maybe some things with some height and varying things there. It doesn't have to be screened right off, but things so you see the landscape and you don't really notice the shed, because the shed really doesn't match any architecture on that entire campus. And I understand it's just for keeping toys, but I think that'd be good, just to try to get a little screening there. I think that's it. The extension of time, I'm fine. And the pickup, I really think it's better than what we approved before. I really like having a lot of that traffic off of there.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
I have no concerns at all. I'm excited that the playground is happening as soon as possible. I am sure those kids are looking to climb and jump and run, not just be in a field. So, yeah, I think it was great.
That already.
Yeah.
It's trying to get them corralled in one spot.
Yeah.
All right. Chris?
I wasn't on the planning commission last year, but the shed location looks good to me. The shed looks good to me. I'm fine with the extension, of course, and yeah, I'm good.
All right. Is there a motion for approval? Chris?
I'll make a motion. First, I'd like to just a point of clarification. I know for houses, we go to the midpoint of the gable end of the roof. But for accessory structures, we've always gone ultimate height of the accessory structure. So unless we've changed something recently, just for clarification, the reason for that is nobody wants an 18-foot tall peak in a backyard if you're the neighbor. So when we did this, we figured the structure, a typical garage, what you'd have for a typical garage roof, and so we went from that 8 feet, you'd have about 6 foot of rise, and that's when we made that original code, was so that 14 feet's enough. We don't need somebody putting a one-to-one shingled roof on and the neighbor having to stare at it. So just double check. I think that what you referenced applies to homes, but I think our accessory structures, unless we changed it with that home, which I hope we didn't, the accessory structure would still stay 14-foot ultimate height.
It's in the definition, the height definition. It does specifically
For accessory structures too?
For the shed specifically.
Then we should look at that, because it always was 14 ultimate. I don't think any of us would really care for, I mean, if you look at it, even if they had a 10-foot eave height, that would allow them to go 18 feet. If they had 8 foot, I mean, they'd be up to 19 feet tall, right next to you, a 19-foot tall roof. And that was the whole point of this, was to keep the accessory structures. Yeah, you can have a garage back there or a workshop, but let's not make it oppressive to the neighbor. So that got changed when because I know we spent a lot of time on the definitions for the houses and how we measure those, because there's always controversy. Yeah. And we did that, we must have just kind of let the accessory structures go in with the same definition. Okay.
We can pull it forward.
I think we should look at that, because I really don't think we want somebody coming in with an 18 or 19-foot or peak height. Yeah. All right, thanks. I'll move approval as recommended by staff, and then ask staff to adjust the staff report to show asphalt shingles, that we're approving asphalt shingles.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further comments? Any questions from the applicant?
No?
All right.
No, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to 6A, which is the public hearing on the request by One City Schools for consideration of additional site improvements at 1707 West Broadway. This is case 226-2022. And Tammy, are you going to drive us through this one too? No.
So you guys, we would to work on some of our external and internal design features, for instance, our design plan. So Amy brought us back with representing one city from GPDOC, and she'll be discussing kind of our dreams for the MPC building.
I may come back and talk about that other fence piece, but we'll let Jamie do that.
Oh, sure.
All right.
I'm going to share my screen if I can have the host enabled.
Yes.
Wonderful to see everybody again. There we go. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to run through this. I have a lot of visuals, but we'll keep it to a minimum tonight. So as we're looking at the school, and as you see many images, we have kind of the path coming, driving to the parking lot and to the front of the school here. And we have just a single entrance or a single sidewalk leading to the entrance of the school. I know in previous plans we've tried to address things like bike parking, and as we're kind of moving to a new system of kind of having the parents come into the school or become engaged with the school for pickup and drop off, the front entrance has become even more important from a functional standpoint as well as a visual one. And I think Tammy and David, if you want to speak to some of the issues that have happened with water runoff, I think what we've looked at so far is this front entrance has a ton of wear and tear. We have students on the grass, we have wood chips, stone chips as part of the landscaping. and it's just gotten a lot of use. And so we're looking for ways not only to brighten up the entry, but also to make this a permanent solution that's going to work low maintenance, and something that's going to stand up to the wear and tear that this location gets.
Yeah. Even to Emily's point, we have light bollards that go along the sides here of the path, and we've seen 2 already damaged by students, and we're unable to find one-to-one replacements. So even things like that, this is the front of our school. This is something that's really important to us, that it's not only very functional, easy to maintain, but also looks beautiful. And some of those things, just given the age of the building, will be impossible to keep up kind of as is.
Yes, and I can briefly speak to the water drainage issue. Over the years, the front area had kind of settled and was climbing up against the building. This was kind of found out as we were doing some demolition in the lower level. We discovered mold, so then we started to investigate where that was coming from. And all of the caulking underneath the precast panels that are underneath the windows at the ground level, the caulking had failed. And so there was water penetration within the building. So that has since been remedied, and the idea is that we would drop in a couple additional site drains to help. You can see some of them there already. They're kind of like the 6 square little things there, yeah. So we could add a couple more of those and tie them into the same system to help keep that water away from the building. Because that's, you hate to put this kind of money into renovating a building and then would be damaged by water. So, and then the rock mulch, continues to get washed out into the road. Students use it to kill spiders and break large windows. And so, so these are kind of some of the things, the reality of, a school versus an office building that we're trying to address by re-envisioning this front entry. So I will let Amy continue.
So I think in summary, to look at all the parts and pieces, and as they come together to re-envision the front entry, our team took a look at how we could do that in a new way that kind of addresses all of the concerns. So as you can see, we had some previous bike parking included in the site over here, and we've moved that to the front of the building. We've created a central, and I'm actually going to skip forward because this is a better view. We have a central gathering place, so that we've opened up the entry to the front of the school to allow for more students, staff, and visitors to gather. Good access for the bike racks closer to the building where it's covered a bit, and then an opportunity for some seating outside of the school to provide a kind of a specific and dedicated spot for gathering, both I should say for eating, and also just for an ancillary teaching space. So I think looking at all of these pieces together to provide as flexible a space as possible. We've looked at adding additional plantings, areas of pervious pavement, given that we're looking at creating a bit more of a stable entry to the front of the school. That isn't going to wear away, isn't going to wash away or become a maintenance issue in the future. And then created 2 areas, just to point out 2 areas of egress so that we have alternative options for bikes coming in and out so it's not going down the center path, and also an area for the cafe seating to spill into the green space. So as flexible as possible with the design. So I'm just going to fly through a couple of the visuals to get a better sense of how this would look. So continuing to maintain the front grass area, but creating more intentional paths so that we're protecting that grass and those low plantings so that they can survive all of the foot traffic that comes in and out of the front of the school. And also to help alleviate some of the issues with drainage and kind of working with that landscaping for the drainage as opposed to against it. And then we'll give a couple visuals of the front of the school with the approved signage included, and then as it relates to the other areas that we've discussed with additional planting. So So you can see, I would say if you look at the W and the E on the VR1, I would say that the current path fits within that just as a straight shot to the front door. So you can see we're opening this up quite a bit as a way to, I guess, encourage gathering. So we talked about students being dropped off and picked up from this front entrance, but that the families being encouraged to come into the school and be a part of it. And this creates a really safe and comfortable seating area with space to gather and talk, to meet other people, and just to promote the community that One City embodies in everything that they do. Here's the view from the parking lot. So you can see we've also made a kind of a bit of a design change to the way that we're opening up the walkway, drawing a bit more attention to it and creating a safer location. Additional trees and plantings, benches and places to sit, all made of durable materials. And to mimic some of the branding and the pieces that we've incorporated on the inside of the school to create a wonderful identity on the exterior. I do have some nighttime shots, but these are also additional pieces that incorporate lighting and art exhibits. So a way to kind of move the lighting from the pathway up a little bit further and to create kind of, again, a visual signal of the bounds of the space, but also some interesting ways to separate and light the paths that you can go through. A covered area that would be more permanent even through the winter time to extend the outdoor classroom aspect, and also a place for people to gather and meet right outside of the coffee shop or the cafe that's right inside of the school. And then potential opportunities to explore for how we could create that shade, whether it's materials to create a bit of a reflection for a more artistic feel, to something that's a little bit more permanent in the sail or umbrellas if need be, to create a bit of a shade opportunity. We have the bike coverage, the bike path, the bike parking, so a more artful way. Oh, did I just mess up and click the wrong thing? So incorporating a really interesting and artful bike rack. Another view from the front, and then we have the nighttime. So you can see how we're lighting the path a little bit. Not only does school extend a little bit later into the evening in fall and winter, but as more activities come about, more gathering, especially for the upper level students, this will get a lot more use at night. And so providing a safe, well-lit, larger path for people to safely go from the parking structure to the front of the school. You'll see the lighting incorporated into the benches, and then the taller towers that include a light reflectance into the space to be a bit more durable and less appealing for the students trying to hop over the bollards. But again, another opportunity for story. Did you want me to run through, Tammy, the other area?
Certainly.
Right now.
The slides are there. Yeah, I did, what's not in your slide deck though is I did add a couple of slides. So maybe what I can do is I can share my screen just to include that.
I do have that too. I have both.
Okay.
So.
Did you both? Okay, yeah, absolutely. Pull it up then.
Okay.
Because I added a couple of slides just to kind of show the vision triangle.
Perfect.
I'm pretty sure I don't have it drawn accurately. Right.
So just down the way that we have right on the corner, the turning corner into that main kind of entrance to the school, is we have the rock wall. And Tammy, I can navigate if you want to speak a little bit more about
Sure. We don't have a name for this. Sometimes we refer to it as the grotto, whatever. But it's the recessed area that allows the windows to be in our indoor play area. But there's been some concern expressed that this could be a potential fall hazard for any students that are walking to school and are not quite yet underneath the supervision of the staff. And it is, if you can see at the far end of that middle picture, that's the steepest part. It's pretty much a 10-foot drop. And the rest of it's kind of terraced, but we would like to discourage students from even climbing and going down in there. So we were looking at, trying to provide some sort of safety fencing around here. When we talked to Douglas about it about maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe it's been, I can't recall, he expressed that, this is a street yard, so that there are certain conditions that we would need to be cognizant of and requirements of the fencing in a street yard. But we also didn't want to just put, a basic fence in here. We want to do something purposeful. So we would not necessarily want to do chain link fence, but there are other opportunities to do an aluminum fence that it still, looks nice, speaks towards the school. So these were just some additional examples. But then Zebra Dog, I'd also put together, Amy and her team also put together an example of an art installation that they've seen done, and that's what these images lend themselves towards, so that it becomes a community event to create. And I don't know, Amy, is this something that would get changed up, or is this typically just, one and done kind of deal?
I think it could be changed. It absolutely could be changed, and I think there are a lot of ways to do it. I think the idea of having some sort of community where people can participate and become a part of it was really appealing, especially for the school community as we continue to build. Each year, learning more, doing more, and building the community of students, scholars, faculty, and families. There are other artful, I think, opportunities to bring things in, and other ways that it could be done, whether it's, the tile pieces or another.
Exactly. So, so these were just kind of some examples of non-traditional type fences that could almost, without actually being signage, could be kind of an indicator, hey, here's the entrance to our school. There's another way, and it would kind of draw the kids in. So we just kind of wanted to discuss this with you in the pre-hearing, because we have had several really good discussions in pre-hearings before as we've gone through this entire process, and we value your input. So, David, did you have anything to add? Oh yeah, these are examples of existing fencing along that street, which we would really not like to. We really don't want to mimic that. So.
Right. No, nothing to add. Really curious to hear input from the commission.
All right. We will close 6A and move on to 6B, which is the pre-hearing conference on the request by One City School for a consideration of additional site improvements at 1707 West Broadway, Case 2/26/2022. Doug.
Thanks. So just as a recap here, the One City Schools purchased the building. They received a zoning permit approval for the adaptive reuse of the former office building at 1707 West Broadway back in July 2021. This pre-hearing concerns the additional site improvements to the entryway, as well as just adjusting the existing building to adapt to the school use and some of the demands of that. The zoning for this is Community Design District, CDD, and the zoning permit is required for the proposed construction, and they're reviewed by the Plan Commission in this particular zoning district. The entryway redesign, the applicants have run through a lot of the reasons and the elements that they're looking to incorporate, and staff suggests at this point, the commission kind of discussing some of those concepts and suggesting what should be incorporated and maybe what direction the applicant go. How they incorporate some of those elements, and just some of the points that they had already raised. As far as the fencing, as mentioned, that is deemed to be, that it should be installed for safety purposes with the border wall there. It does face the street yard. It faces two different streets, so would be defined as that in the section of the ordinance. I did include that as well in the staff report, just for reference. Typically, in the street yard, it does need to be 42 inches in height, and also typically of a decorative material, but we do allow aluminum fencing as well. But given the safety concerns and some of those elements as well, the Commission may choose to discuss if there's an appropriate alternative for that while still taking into account the vision triangle as well. So I think some more creative options were proposed and were put forward tonight, so seeking some direction to the applicant for that as well as part of this pre-hearing. Finally, the landscaping. I know that the applicant is concerned about the green space requirements, specifically the 30% for this site in particular. And I know some of the changes to the entryway, some of those elements may be taking away some green space in effect, but the landscaping, the permeable pavers, things like that, maybe the Commission can discuss those elements and how that may be considered as part of that final. Thank you.
I think we're back to Chris.
Chris
one.
Thing one. I'll start with the last thing you said. Well, number one, I think that entryway is a home run. I think it's beautiful. I think it's an excellent addition to the project. I think a lot of times when an applicant is light on green space, we ask them to do something special, maybe permeable pavement, maybe some sitting areas and planters. I mean, basically all the things you've already incorporated. So I think you've done what we would ask if you did this. I think it's a great addition. We like to see green space at the front of the building, but this is even nicer than green space. And you do have quite a bit of green space on the back side. You've got a lot of open areas, so I wouldn't have any concerns whatsoever about the green space. What type of permeable pavement are you suggesting? Asphalt, concrete, pavers?
That we're still investigating that. I think we have the impervious pavement here, which could be like a crushed gravel, but we're kind of looking at potentially, perhaps a paver, so that there would make the opportunity for some water penetration between the pavers. If that's something we would work with our civil engineer to really kind of hammer down. But, some of these pieces too, we don't want to heave up because it is your entry. And we just had an issue where we had to repair some sidewalk outside of one of the stair exits because of some frost heaving. So, we want to make sure that it's safe, but, easily maintained. And still try to, but we are flirting with that impervious cutoff pretty close. So we just kind of wanted to present this and see where we're at with that. But that's why there's some existing landscaping up there in the front. Then we want to maintain some of that element as well. But perhaps it's something that's a little easier to maintain because right now I believe they're relying on parents, volunteers to take care of the plantings on the property. So, David, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
No, we have, yes, and, we have regular landscape, regular care maintenance that comes out and helps us. But what we have right now is just kind of a Sisyphean task of picking up rocks and chips. And it's hard to keep the school as beautiful as we want it to stay, and it's a project worthy of an entrance like this, rather than one where we're always pushing back wood chips and picking up rocks.
Right. Yeah.
That all makes sense. My question was really to the permeable, what type, but I would suspect your permeable is not in the main traffic area. It's off to the edge. It's more of the meeting, recreating areas, and I would suspect that would be a perfect opportunity for permeable pavers. It'd give you a little bit of a look. You still have some infiltration. You can get some groundwater. You'll get some of what lands that are coming back out, and even your gathering area will probably pitch out towards the permeable, and you're allowed a run on of almost 3 to 1. I would go with a 5 to 1 here, but basically from the center of your circles, that would be no more than a 3-to-1 probably run-on on there, so it could handle it under the permeable pavement standards, so you could get some water quality benefits, some credit for that, for the whatever impervious you're adding, so it might be something to think about.
Yeah.
The,
We wouldn't use asphalt in the center part. We would like to kind of keep it light colored.
No, the question was just what type of permeable. There, you know, you can have asphalt, concrete, or permeable pavers, and any of those are acceptable for what you're building there. I suspect the permeable pavers would be the most attractive option, and quite honestly, they're the easiest to maintain. They're more expensive to put in, but they're easiest to maintain long term, because to refresh them, all you got to do is take the chips out, top half-inch of chips, and put them back in, and you've got the pavement totally refreshed. So, just comment. As far as the cafe, I think the, whatever you're going to call it, the roof covering or whatever, I like it. That's a big building, and you're breaking it up with some colorful canopies or whatever you choose to put there. I like that compared to umbrellas. I think some permanent structure there would be wholly appropriate. The rock wall, you don't want to have the kids go rock wall climbing before and after class, I take it.
No, only downstairs in the approved area inside.
So you're really close to your sidewalk. So, I mean, I think a cool fence, something unique and fun would be nice. I'm not sure how we could call one side of your building street side. The only street you really abut on is a circle up on Engle. The street in front is a private driveway, but because it's so close to the sidewalk, and it would be almost inhibiting to have a 10-foot art wall right there. I think some of those fun types of fences, you have some in the back too. I certainly would be open to some proposals. We only have 5 of us here tonight, so there's 3 other voices that aren't here. But on a very last page of our packet, there's a lot of, second to last, there's a lot of fun fences you've shown. I think something that's not too tall along the sidewalk at least would be fun, and if you're thinking you want to put an art wall in, I would suggest if you suggested, it should probably be on the ends where you're not so close to the sidewalk and it isn't so, inhibiting. I guess all I can say is not pedestrian, so it's pedestrian scale along the sidewalk, and that end you might create some gathering area. If you're thinking you want an art wall or something for them to play on, I would take a look at it and propose it, but keep it in context with the building, the size of the building, keep it in context certainly with the sidewalk on that side. I don't know, Doug, what to consider this. Is this the front, the side, the back? Engle Street's
could you go to the site plan?
I'm sorry?
I asked Amy to just switch the site plan for you.
Yeah, so typically, the way the ordinance would define it is any portion that's sort of forward of the building towards a street of any sort would be street yard, but yeah.
But that's not a street, so all I'm saying is it's not technically a street, so we have a little flexibility here on what we choose to do, but we need to treat, when you look at the site plan, the corner of that rock wall is pretty close. In fact, the sidewalk's been jogged, so they weren't too close to this rock wall. So for me, along what's close to that sidewalk, it needs to be something more of a pedestrian scale. But maybe as you turn the corner, coming in towards the driveway to the front entrance, maybe if you chose to do an art wall or something, maybe something in that location where you're away from that sidewalk and you're further from your sidewalk taking you up into the building, maybe that might be a place to at least explore what the possibilities might be there. I think I love what you did with the entry, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to limit your thought for how you fence this area off. I just want to give you some guidance that I think anything too tall along that sidewalk, that's what used to be a through road, might be a little too much there.
We don't want to go too tall, but we just kind of want to discourage.
Well, I'm trying not to discourage you. How's that? And I'm, at least for one person, I'm saying, 42 inches maybe isn't the limit here, because I'm not even sure where the road is. Well, I'm sure where the road is, but I'm not sure how to interpret it on this particular site. And you've come up with some really creative things, and I don't want to cut into that and tell you I wouldn't consider it, because I think you've done some very tasteful improvements here. And I think that's what we're talking about, Doug, is that entry and the suspense, right?
Yep.
Okay, well,
Corinne?
Love the entry. I think it's fantastic. Great job. The only question I have is you have the egress shown where the bike rack is, but where do the bikes go? I didn't see a sidewalk connecting to the bike.
Yeah, we came over that after the drawing, the diagrams were done because there's stair exits at each of those locations, and I, being the code person, said we need to have a way out of those little bulbs that isn't where everybody's converging, where everybody's coming out the front, the middle door. So it's just we'll probably provide a pathway or some way to kind of easily get to that without having to go across the grass or through the landscape area. So and then on the other side, out of the cafe, it kind of depends on exactly where that lines up. There is kind of a sharp drop off there, but we could see that once the school begins to develop pathways into the woods to explore that classroom, then it looks flatter here than what it actually is. But we would be able to kind of provide either some landscape type steps or something that could kind of easily access that wooded area a little easier, or even back to the parking lot.
So, and I think on the bike rack side as well is kind of working around where we need drainage. So that was the additional piece that we'll have to work really closely with the civil engineer on. Where do we need drainage in order to make that successful? And that egress will be a bit determined by where those locations are.
Yeah, and what also is not shown is there is a fire hydrant over on the right side of the entryway that will have to remain. So we'll work to make sure that that's still easily accessible by the fire department. Sorry, Amy, it's gonna look at the red thing right now.
That's how it always goes.
I know, right? I saw that the other day. I went, but it's more off to the side. To the right. I think we're okay.
Okay. As far as the fence, I guess I agree with what Chris was saying, that it seems like you wouldn't want it too high. And then you also said that space there, that the windows that are within that recessed areas are your indoor playroom. So I guess I would just encourage you not to have something, looking at some of these choices that you have, I don't know if they would block the light from getting in those windows, and then it would make it kind of it's not like it's going to block all the light, but some of these are pretty solid. So that might make it dimmer in your play space, and that might not be as nice. So I like on the non-traditional fence style page, I like the one that's like see-through, with the brown frame with the really light, I don't know what to call it, like the
mesh.
Yeah, like the mesh in there. I like that one. I agree with what Chris was saying. Maybe it would be something that's more of just that barrier that doesn't block the view into those windows, and then as you turn the corner, maybe it is more of the fence that's in the middle, where you have the kids do their artwork and you put that as panels and make that fence. Whatever it would be that you would want there. I guess the only thing that I like a lot of these choices, and the only thing I guess I would encourage you to think about too is that, you have a pretty sophisticated look to this campus, and I think it's great. So, maybe not the pencils, because I think that would kind of skew it a different direction. So, keeping it a little bit more in that similar style would be what I would suggest. But I like it a lot.
Chris?
I like your entryway plan a lot. I really don't have any comments on that. With respect to the fence, I actually, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I feel like I love the pencils. I love the ridiculous, crazy, creative ideas for the fence. I think, anything you can do to make children enjoy their school or get excited about it, going to it, getting them involved with the fence, I think is a fantastic idea. Giving them some pride of ownership in their school, making them feel like they've contributed something to it is a great idea. And with respect to, fences like chain link, I went to an elementary school that was surrounded entirely by chain link fences, and I feel like every day someone was getting in trouble for climbing on them. So you couple a chain link fence with a 10-foot rock wall, and you've elevated them even further. And I think if you can make a fence that's prevents them from climbing and looks cool, it's a win-win. That's all I got. Brendan.
All right, we'll start with fence just because you guys have talked about it. I'm actually kind of, I think you're both right, where yes, it's sophisticated, but I also think even with very simple materials, you can create kind of a sophisticated experience. The first thing that came to mind is, and we were just talking about, I have to travel a lot for work at the Minneapolis airport. There's a whole bunch of sculptures that are made out of Crayola. Like they're just crayons, but they're made into these really, sophisticated looking sculptures. And so like this sort of connection to a very playful thing, but, also done in a very elegant and sophisticated way can kind of be aspirational, inspirational. So I think that, doing something that's pretty ambitious would be, I think, great. But if I was looking at that part of the plan, I'd be really interested to see kind of a more complete concept of a total experience space. Kind of what was being said earlier. It's not just the interface to the sidewalk, but what's going to be the change to the experience for the people inside the school. And if it's approached in that kind of comprehensive way and kind of presented in that sort of, this is the experience that we're going to deliver now with this change to the space. I would be open to a number of very creative and ambitious ideas that are inspirational and aspirational for students. My only comments about the entry, so I have two. One is that this is a school, but it feels very businessy going to it. That some of the same things that you're thinking about doing over in this other fence experience space, maybe just a brainstorming exercise about how you might be able to incorporate some more vibrancy in the entryway space itself. There's a lot of things that you're doing with the canopies and the bike area and the feature inside the building, but maybe some cues that kind of are drawing you, just little accents that are drawing you into that even before you get up to the school itself. I don't have any specific ideas. There's 1,000 ways that could happen, but just maybe bringing out a little bit more vibrancy. And the other is I really like this motto that you've got right at the front of the school. From a lighting design perspective, is there a way that you could make that more of a focal point even at night? With some of the benches that you have there, just even some accent lighting that are a little bit more of a connection of the parking lot area and the walkway area into, again, the shape you have already draws someone in, but at nighttime there's this sense of separation of there's all this beauty that's happening at the school, but you're disconnected from it. If there's just a way from a lighting perspective to draw you into that space, and especially continually 24/7 drawing a focal point to that motto there. Those are things that pop out to me. I did notice the same thing about the egress and how the egress works with circulation, especially when you were talking about from a maintenance perspective. So as you flesh out the concept, I could imagine that if you have egress available there's going to be a number of desire lines that are going to start to develop at each of those egress points. So it'd be interesting to see in a follow-up, but thank you for what you're doing for your students.
All right. I don't have much additional to add, except for in the recessed area with the proposed fence. So I took a another visit this weekend over there, and I would agree that the steepest part is on that entryway into the main parking lot or to the main entry. That is definitely the most concerning. Well, that and the opposite side are probably the two steepest portions. What I did notice is the recessed area. I'm interested in how the maintenance and what that sunken area will turn into with a fence. And it goes to Brendan's point of like the experience for the individuals that are in the building looking out. If the fence is really just hiding a ditch, that isn't very welcoming. But if the fence is intended to help prevent falls and other issues, but also allows somehow that space to be maintained in a way that is beneficial, I think is going to be a key. When I look at there's another area just south of your entry driveway that also is recessed. It's not nearly as steep. This one has 8 to 10 foot drop-offs. That one has more 4 to 6 foot drop-offs. They're a little bit more gradual. I'm not sure if you have similar concerns in those areas, or if the concerns are just lessened just by the gradual recess in those locations, or if you're looking at your site more holistically.
The area to the south of the driveway is a lot more gradual, and there haven't been any concerns voiced to this point about safety of the students. I know they do traverse around and through that when they're accessing where we have our temporary play area over by the parking deck. And the intent is that whatever fence we put around it, we still want to be able to access the inside of that, because it does need cleanup. It has kind of, the weeds have kind of taken over a little bit, and I know there are plans to go in there and clean that up. It's not, there was some discussion early on in design about that being kind of an outdoor planting area, or, and it can still be that, but I don't know that it's going to be something that students are necessarily involved in unless it's the older grade students, just because of the safety issue. But, those are some of those things definitely, with the kids playing inside, the windows are higher up, but they still get that light, they see the sky. And so we don't want to block that too much, but they also feel like, depending on the plantings that we do encourage in that area, it feels like they're part of the outside and not in a basement. So, which is kind of one of those key things we wanted with that having the indoor play area at that only place where there were windows in the lower level. So, these are all great comments. Definitely appreciate them.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you didn't hear feedback on that you wish to hear feedback from the commission?
No, I think you guys are all thinking kind of along the same lines we are. As we keep looking at this, and again, as the school is, as the kids are there, they're now on the first floor, and so they feel like they're in, a little more permanently ensconced in their new space. So I think, we're always, we like that you feel this is sophisticated, but at the same time, we also want to be able to appeal to the younger students, and the 12th graders. So, so those are kind of, it's a tough line, because you don't want your high school kids to feel like they're going, I'm just going to grade school. I've already done that. But, they're actually going to someplace special for all of them. So I'm hoping that we can go back to the drawing table a little bit and reassess that.
Yeah, I thought your comments were really great guideposts for us to think about as we move forward. And certainly, maintaining that natural light coming into the basement. I mean, we try to use borrowed light too for our rooms that are even a little bit further in the building. There's glass throughout the interior. So we wouldn't want to minimize that. And we try not to waste a single square foot of the property. There's opportunity everywhere, and we want every place to look as beautiful as possible. So thank you. Yeah, I think this gives us really great food for thought, and it's good to know that we're moving in the right direction.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, we will close the pre-hearing conference, and we will move on to 6C, which is the public hearing on a request by Go Brightway for consideration of a zoning permit for site modifications and expanded use at 2801 Industrial Drive, Case 223, 2022. Dave, will you be walking us through your proposal?
Good evening, guys. Yeah, Jay Craig here with MSI Journal. RJ Bass has joined us as well. RJ is the owner of the Right Way. We've got the narrative that discusses the business opportunity before us and the proposed site plan should the opportunity prevail. So I thought maybe you'd want to hear from RJ as far as the business operation would go if we were to win this business, and then we can walk you through the site plan if you'd like.
Perfect. Go for it, RJ.
Hi, good evening, everybody. As my narrative stated, we're currently, you're notified this spring that the city, school district of Madison is going to go out for bid for their school bus transportation. And we thought it was going to be this summer, and currently we haven't heard anything yet. Probably with the last few weeks at the start of school. So we're hoping it's going to come in the next month. So in order to do that, to provide that transportation, a big part of this always is finding a piece of property that can house not only the office maintenance, but housing the number of vehicles that's needed. And we think it could be around that 60 to 80 buses. So we're currently kind of in a holding pattern with hearing about the RFP, but yet the RFP wouldn't start until next August 2023 for that school year. But there's a lot of work to get this property in shape, by spring or June to get the property prepared. So that's kind of an overview of our process, looking at this RFP coming out and getting the property ready. Jay, do you want to talk about the specifics of what we would like to change in the property?
Yeah, you bet. We presented a site plan. Doug, would you like for me to try to share my screen with that, or are you guys looking at it there?
I will make you co-host. There you go. You should be able to share now.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, terrific. Okay, here's the cover page of the design. This includes a potential rendering of the building. If the RFP is won, we would want to remove kind of what I'll call the dead portion of the building, a portion of the building up front that isn't occupied currently, and we would renovate the remainder space that is currently occupied by another tenant. That tenant would vacate, and Go Right Way would occupy the full space. This shows the site plan that we have proposed. This would give us 79 buses and 94 cars. Again, this is the existing building that would be demolished and go away. We would create bus parking all along the side of the site. In addition to this area here, car parking or employee parking would be the remainder of the site. And then we'd renovate the building to allow buses to enter for maintenance purposes. and also for washing purposes. We have a wash bay down here on this area of the building. It would be at grade for buses to pull in and be cleaned. Up here at this area where we have the maintenance bays, there are currently docks that would be docks and dock levelers that would be removed, and this area would be filled so the buses could drive right into the building. This area over here would be renovated as the kind of the new office space. We have over here existing bathrooms and a small office for the current tenant that may or may not remain. That might be good for kind of shop bathrooms and that kind of thing, shop office. Whereas over here would be new front of the house offices for sales and dispatch, and then back in the back more of the administrative offices and the bathrooms. So that is in general the concept. We have the two curb cuts that we would utilize, ideally keeping buses separate from automobiles. The buses would utilize this curb cut up here for entry, automobiles down here. We would, we've heard in some preliminary conversations the desire for landscaping, so we would plan to provide some good screening here along Industrial. We provided some islands as well for potential landscape islands. And the lighting that exists in the site is somewhat adequate, although we've talked about adding perhaps some lighting over in this area where we currently have the building that will be demolished and a temporary trailer for the current use. Let me go to this. This third page, guys, is just a blow up of the building plan. On the left, we have a demo plan. There's currently a paneled former refrigeration space in the building that would be demoed. We talked about eliminating the docks, and then this would be the new building plan with the offices along this border, the maintenance bays, and the wash bay here on this side. So that's the concept. It's not fully developed because we're not sure we've got the business yet or the contract, but we wanted to have an opportunity to share with you our thoughts if we are able to serve the Madison School District with this project. This or something similar would probably be the intensity that we would look for to serve the school district.
All right, wonderful. We will close the public hearing section and move on to the pre-hearing, which is item 6D. Pre-hearing conference on the request by Go Right Way for consideration of a zoning permit for site modifications and expanded use at 2801 Industrial Drive, case number 223-2022. Doug.
Thank you. So just kind of off the bat here, I did meet with the applicant as well as their contractor, discuss some of the site improvements here that may come as part of this RFP, as well as the conditions of the existing permit, some of those elements that were approved earlier this year. So as mentioned, this would be an expansion of the existing Go Right Way use to respond to a potential RFP. As mentioned, time would be of the essence if and when it is issued, so they wanted to come just kind of for that pre-hearing discussion here. Even though it is early on, they wanted to get some feedback on the proposed renovations, parking lot reconfiguration, and enhanced site landscaping. Difficult to say. The land use here is, it's in the commercial industrial zoning district and designated as industrial in both the current and future land use maps of the 2016 comprehensive plan. Industrial uses include light manufacturing, assembly, warehouse, and other storage uses, and it appears the use is appropriate for this site even with the expansion. From the site circulation perspective, the two curb cuts would remain along Industrial Drive, as mentioned, with the separation of uses, with school buses using the western approach that is wider, with the eastern curb cut about 20 feet wide, designed for two-way traffic, but most likely the vehicles, both staff, visitors, office staff, and the like. The parking, I think, will be a key piece to discuss. I copied in the staff report the exact language lifted for industrial and non-retail sales and service. Again, some of this will come with the scope, depending upon the number of buses, number of people working on peak shift, for example, but I think some guidance there will be important, as well as the number of staff that are maybe expected in both the office and the sort of warehouse workshop area as well in the back of house there. As far as the building improvements, it would include demolition of the existing portion closest to Industrial Drive, and that would be converted to additional parking with additional office space and administrative uses being built out as well. Proposed business hours would be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, with additional charter bus use during the weekend hours. It's not immediately clear if this would be including the existing Uw Health service that was approved in the previous zoning permit, so that may be something that the Commission chooses to clarify. Stormwater, obviously plans were not shared at this point, but they will most likely be shared with the city's consulting engineer. The lighting, at the time of the approved zoning permit, they did add a couple additional fixtures to the building itself, but maybe the Commission could discuss if additional poles may be required in the new parking area, just given the intensity and the hours of operation that are expected. The landscaping, this was some feedback that was given to the applicant, was to try and incorporate tree islands, just given the large amount of parking that will be provided. The green space is listed on the plans at 36.6%, with much of that coming in the northern portion, behind the building and sort of to the northwest corner, as well, with some of the grade there. So landscaping along the industrial will be important along the street side there, but also some canopy trees in the tree islands. There is some relief for industrial parking standards, specifically for landscaping, but the Commission can give some feedback as to what they'd be looking for as part of a potential formal submittal. Signage is shown on the rendering, and of course would most likely need Plan Commission review. And that's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Irene, you're up first.
Okay. So I guess how should I start? I think the use is fine. The biggest question I think I have is about the parking. It's hard to know because you don't know how many buses you would actually need. I guess, well, let's start with the question that Doug asked in the staff report about, would you maintain the UW Health service contract as well? So you would need that number of buses plus whatever the Madison contract would require.
Steve, can you comment on that shuttle?
Yes, so we would be still operating the UW Health Shuttle. We have 4 years remaining on that contract, and the parking spaces designated has taken that into consideration.
Okay.
Did that service reduce?
It did slightly reduce. It went from a total of about approximately 11 buses down to around 6 or 7.
And would you have visitors? I mean, really, the parking is what you would need for your drivers, correct?
Correct. Yep. Really no visitors.
And then when I'm looking at the site plan, there's that section in the southern part, the central southern part, where you have 22 buses and 12 cars all lined up together. And so that would require a lot of logistics to make sure that the 11 buses on the east side would leave first and come back later, potentially. I mean, I guess I don't know how it works with your buses, but is a bus assigned to a driver? Because if so, then you'd have to make sure that they would be able to get in and out of that space, because it's blocked on the other side by those 12 cars. So, if you didn't have those 12 cars there, then the buses could, well, that'd still be hard because they can't get, I'm having trouble with the parking, I think, and the site circulation, because there's really not drive aisles in there. There's just lines of cars, and there's only one way in and one way out, and then those buses are stacked up. And, I've not ever run the logistics for a business like this, so I don't know how it works, but it seems like this would be challenging. I also wasn't sure, if of the safety of walking from, like, if you're car number 23 and you're parking at that end and you've got buses and cars driving in and you have to walk through that parking lot. So I guess if you were gonna, if there would be like some way to have a path for walking that would be a little bit safer to think about. I don't know if that's feasible. And then the other thing I had was the lights. On the north side, it seems like you need some more lights on the north side, as well as that part that you were talking about where the building would be demolished. And then the only other question I have, and then I'll let you respond, but if you're doing wash and maintenance inside the interior building, build-out would need to account for that wastewater and for the disposal or the storage of oil, and you need to meet whatever standards are, which I assume you know, but I don't see that here. I don't see like the space for where that water would run off, like where you would collect it and how that would work. So that would maybe be something we'd want to look at as well. And then I think those are my main questions.
Yeah, thanks. Good question about those 11 buses. Typically, we have a lot of spares. So I would envision those 11 buses being our spare buses. So, if something happens to another bus, that's where those spare buses come in. Otherwise they typically sit there. Maybe if a bus is getting maintained, maintenance, or it's down, then a spare bus will be used. But those, I would envision those wouldn't be regular route buses.
Okay.
And we do have the cars separated from the buses, so those 12 cars will enter and exit through the car driveway, and the buses go on the west side.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. But again, without knowing how many buses you'd have to run, it's hard to know if you would need those buses or not, or if they'd be active buses. So.
Right. Yeah, I believe currently the system is running about 50 or 60 buses. That's due to the driver shortages in the last couple of years with the pandemic. So I think they're at 50 or 60. They used to be at 80. So it is hard to know what the requirements are going to be.
All right. Chris, number 2.
I share some of Corinne's concerns about just, I guess, safety, really. And forgive me because I don't know a lot about running a bus business. But, for example, if there were to be a fire or and someone needed to call an ambulance, is there adequate space for fire and EMS to kind of navigate this massive parking lot? You've made your building smaller, or you're going to make your building smaller if this happens. If there's 80 buses potentially, is your building going to be adequately sized? I think I see 2 unisex bathrooms and maybe 2 existing bathrooms in the upper right there. So if 80 bus drivers all show up for work at 6 a.m., can they go to the bathroom? I don't know. So yeah, really, and then lighting. If there's adequate lighting and walkability for the drivers, those would be my primary concerns and comments at this time.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of new comments to add. I did see in terms of the wash area that it's talking about that it's going to a drain, so I figured that if we see, a more complete plan, we'll understand the civil. I had the same thought about the walkways. I think there's been a good faith effort in terms of conceptually some of the tree islands to try to break the space up. I also agree about circulation, just for a variety of use cases. I think if there was a circulation drawing or circulation plan that kind of explained the EMS and other, emergency vehicles, and then the bathrooms inside. That's a good point, Chris. Just in terms of with the number of vehicles there and. Yeah, just the occupancy and making sure that even with the smaller building, you're satisfying the needs of the occupancy. But no, it makes a lot of sense to me from a practical perspective. I think that I'm just bringing up things that would be useful to see in a more detailed set of plans. But.
All right, Chris, number one.
Okay, I guess the first issue is this an appropriate use for this property? And I say a qualified yes. The reason I say qualified is because there's a really nice Class A office building right next to you, so we just have to be cognizant of that and make sure we buffer well against that. And the reason I say qualified too is typically when we have either a busing company or a trucking company, we'd like to see the trucks and the buses in the back and the cars and the landscaping in the front. You may have 30% or 36%, but most of it's in the back. So it's way under landscaped in the front. And I know you're trying to keep what's there for asphalt. For this large of a remake, I think we got to get it done right, which comes into all these questions that have been asked. Some of these things like between your 13 cars and your 11 cars, you've got, what is it, a 50, 60-foot wide drive aisle? It's just a waste of asphalt and pervious. So I think we need to put a lot more thought into the parking lot, the circulation, where the buses are going to be. And if we're just storing buses, the last place we want to just store buses for spares is in front of the building right next to the street. I think I would extend the parking to the north where you have extra land for buses and get a lot more green space in the front. The car driveway is really awkward to have a car driveway only 20 foot wide at that kind of angle for that many cars to go in and out of. You're just asking for traffic jams right in there. For that you build a new curb cut and you take that one out and you line it up. All the comments about circulation, absolutely. When we go down a line of 25, 30 stalls, there should be some way to get out of there without backing out when you don't find a stall. So in other words, again, the circulation around your parking lots. I think the landscaping towards that widened office building, I see it's vacant right now, but that you need to really pay close attention to that. We're going to need something that really helps screen this more industrial use from a high-end office use. There's a definite change in uses between these two. So I'd pay special attention to that. I think when you rework the parking lot and get it appropriate, there'll be a lot more green space. These islands are way too small for what you've got in there. They need to be wider. I think the setback from the road could be more, but I think you really need to think about where these buses are and not double deep right next to the road. Lighting, it's hard to comment on lighting until we see a parking plan that makes sense, but certainly you're going to have a lighting plan that lights it properly. As far as the amount of parking, we can't comment on it. We don't know what's going to be here. Is the university still here? Great. I think that's great if they are. And if they have that and they have the Madison contract, great. But at that point, we'll know how many buses you have and how many employees, and then we can really respond to what's there and how many maintenance staff and things like that. As far as bathrooms, that's going to be state building code based on a number of employees you have. To get your state-approved plans, you're going to have to talk about how many people are using this facility. Fire review will talk about the same things that have been talked about, and I'm talking about, and that's having a fire lane in front of the building so you can service it. When you have all this dead-end parking go right into the building, there's nowhere for a fire truck to turn and get along the building or fight it if there is a fire. So that, again, goes into the circulation that you have around this site and access for fire truck, and that will definitely be a review item when it goes through the Plan Commission, because we will ask the fire department what they want. I think that's it. I sound a bit negative. I'm not negative about the use. I'm negative about the plan we have in front of us. I think needs a lot more thought. It needs to be condensed. We don't need all that wasted space, and we need to get some of that parking back to the north, and we need to get some of that green space back to the front of the building. I know on Monona Drive, in our code, when we talk about 30% green space, we say, and a minimum in the front is 30. And if you have a deficiency of green space, you put it towards the back, not towards where the general public is. And that's not written, but it's something we try to enforce. To come in like this and say, well, here's all our green space in the back, and we've got almost all asphalt in the front, is inappropriate for that property. It's just flat out inappropriate, which is where everybody else is talking about, well, why do you got this or where you go here? It all comes back to the amount of green space that's there and decent circulation. And that's it, really. I think as far as your question goes, could this use work here? Absolutely. And I think your building works. I think it's probably not the use we envision, but it's certainly one that works here. One thing I would ask, if you get this, where will your headquarters for this operation be? Anybody? I'm sorry? Yeah, for the Madison busing. Where would your headquarters be? Well, I guess what, I'll tell you where I'm going. Where will the buses be registered? Because if we're going to have all this and all this traffic in here, it'd be really nice that these things are titled. When you title them, you say, where are these used? That you would mention Monona, because if we have all this traffic in here, our street aids that we get back from the state are based on, and most people don't know this, when you title your vehicle, you say, where is this vehicle kept? I mean, these are being kept in Monona. They're not being kept in Madison. They're being kept in Monona. If you say they're being kept in Madison, then Madison gets all the street aid for all the buses that are here in Monona and using all the Monona streets. So kind of the way that works is we try to encourage people. I know Madison's to say, oh, we're in Madison, but this is in Monona. It's nice to have all these vehicles registered in Monona because it helps us out on taking care of the roads that they all use. And they use roads in Madison, but there's plenty of Madison companies that drive in here too.
Yes, this will be a Monona headquarters.
Appreciate that. That helps us out a lot on our state aid for streets. And see where I'm going with that is a lot this size, we'd have normally a much bigger building. We used to with Roan Palenque and a lot better tax base there. Well, we don't have that, and that's okay, but we will have quite a base coming in for our road aids, and that helps offset that as far as when I'm looking at this property.
Right, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, the only other two additional comments. One has to do with the wash bay. Right now, the way everything is set up, although I know site circulation and the parking has been talked about, currently the wash bay, clearly buses are having to enter the car entry to get into the wash bay and exit. So that's one consideration. If you're really trying to have a separation between car traffic and bus traffic, to reconsider how that circulation works out with them. Or propose that it isn't done that way, and maybe it's a drive-through wash bay and it's set up differently. I don't know. It's just an observation. And then my last question is regarding the site safety. Are you considering the whole site being enclosed and secured?
With fencing?
Yeah.
I haven't considered it. Preferably not, but I thought it was a safe area.
And my question isn't, is it a safe area? My question was really leading to that aspect of, if you're considering to secure the whole site, we'd want to know that as part of the plan. It's not listed in this plan. I just know there are some bus yards that are fully enclosed by fencing, and we'd want to know that if we're looking at plans, because I think that would be a key item for this group to know, to be able to give you appropriate feedback if that was something you were considering.
Okay. Would you like fence? Or
My recommendation would have it not be fenced, but that's one item that didn't come up because it wasn't in the proposal, but I know bus yards often are. So, Chris, number one.
I would have a strong preference that you don't fence up the front of the site. Typically, if you need to do something like that, it could be from the building back if you want to have a fenced yard to protect certain equipment you have there that you're working on, or it's an area you want to keep casual visitors out of. It would be the fence like from the building back, but it would be hard for us to have the type of fence you'd use around a bus yard coming here all the way up to the road. I think that would be a really bitter pill for anybody to swallow. So I think we're both on the same page with that, although I wouldn't preclude fencing from the building back if you have security needs or, like I say, nuisances that you just don't want people to get to.
Corrine? I'm just going to run the gamut regarding the fence question because it wasn't part of this, and I just know there are other bus yards within 15 miles of this site that are fully fenced, and so I'd like to use appropriate feedback from the commission.
That would be a huge fence.
It would be.
Yeah, it's up to your business need, and like Brian said, we would just need to see it as part of the packet.
Chris, too?
Yeah, I feel like a fence in the front would look like a penitentiary or a junkyard or something. So,
Yeah, I'm not asking for or interested in a fence.
Anything else? That's it.
Anything that you didn't hear from us and that you would hope to have some feedback on yet tonight?
I'm good. RJ?
I think that's everything.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that we just wanted to get feedback. With the big thing, if this property was a property, and it sounds like it is, because one of the challenges we have is always when an RFP comes out and to even to bid on it without having a property that's that could be a proper use for this operation. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you heard from the group that we can see it working, just needs some work regarding the site layout and circulation and parking, so definitely workable. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good luck with your RFP.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, we will close 6B and move on to 7A, which is staff report regarding status of developmental projects and proposals, and you can do 1 through 5 in any order that you wish.
We'll time you.
I will start with number 1. The North Point project came through the CDA at that August meeting. It was an informational presentation. They just wanted to introduce the project to the CDA and begin discussions in advance of a potential TIF request. I think it was received well. I think they explained the project and the intent of what they're doing and sort of the different levels of financing that they have. There was also a little bit of a discussion about some of the other lots there, some of the additional commercial.
So the North Point is the one on Broadway.
The White Horse.
Yep. Okay.
East Broadway. Yes.
So for just because
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes, so it was
Across from Menards.
They had a general development plan approved for 75 units, with 59 of those as workforce units, and so just south of Menards along East Broadway. So they had the general development plan GDP approved in October of last year, and they, moving on to number 2, are coming back for PIP for a pre-hearing for the PIP at the next meeting, so September 26th. We've had some good discussions with our engineer, with COPSI, about some of the basins and some of the corridors, environmental corridors and things that are on the site as well. So that will be coming back for the pre-hearing for the PIP at the next meeting. In addition to the CDA, there was a little bit more discussion of some of the commercials, some of the adjacent parcels. Nothing is formal as of yet, but I think there's going to be a mix of uses there, with a strong commercial element to it as well. So,
did you check how old the GDP approval was?
There is not a time element on the GDP.
It doesn't last in perpetuity.
I didn't see anything in the ordinance.
I think there is. How long ago was it?
He said October.
October of 21.
October 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Additionally, another item that will be coming forward at the next meeting, just got the plans for a pre-hearing, again, for a mixed-use development. This would be at the corner of Nichols and Monona, at the north corner of that. So the Sorge CPA, that site. So that'll be coming forward. Again, they just wanted some feedback. There's some ground floor retail there with additional residential as well. So preliminary stages, but they wanted to get some feedback. So as far as I'm aware, we will be having meetings at the next two, September 26th and October 10th. No updates from staff on either DEI or sustainability.
All right. 7B. Request from staff or from the pushback.
I just saw, I didn't remember that, I don't know the name of the development, but like where batteries and bulbs and the fish store is going to be, and those are condos above there, and those were built 15 years ago about?
Which building are we talking about?
The Crawford's Landing.
Oh, Crawford Landing? Oh, goodness.
25 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Longer, okay.
It's been a while.
I think those are the only, like, the most recent condos that we've had, just thinking about our last discussion, or have there been?
Metcalf, right on the corner of Cottage Grove Road and Monona Drive, the big building that would be the northwest corner of that.
Okay.
That's a condo building.
Okay. So have you had any luck gathering some of the information that we were talking about last time?
Yeah, it's a work in progress, certainly. It's on my radar, the statistics and some of those elements. There has been a little bit of a discussion, certainly, about the condo and reasons for that, and I think the main thing I would say, just as a generalization, is the litigation element that would come with a condo versus an apartment building, for example. So that seems to be kind of conversations I've had with architects, specifically, it would be the likelihood of any sort of legal action coming from that sort of is a reason that they would maybe shy away from it. Put it that way.
Litigation about the design of the building or the
future issues, any sort of problem that may come up down the line, it would most likely come back to the architect or folks as part of the design team. At least.
Pretty interesting.
I'm going to keep harping on this because we keep looking at apartments, and we are really just taking our ratios of what we have in Monona way over. And I would guess the architects you're talking to are the architects that are trying to put in apartments. They're telling you that?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
the discussions you have with architects are basically the architects that are coming to put in apartments.
And others.
Because I've talked to others, and there are people building and designing condos. There are. That's a fact. They're putting them in. Some people don't want it because they don't want to get into that, and some people just love to build apartments. But what we need to do, we need to decide what's right for Monona. What's the right mix of housing for Monona? We're putting in a lot of apartments. I think it's really important to talk about that. I think it's really important to get that data instead of being a work in progress. How many apartments have we put in? What have we done to the ratios in Monona? Do we keep looking at apartments? If somebody wants to come, how do we give them feedback without getting more information, having some kind of consensus here on what we should be doing? I know there's a need for apartments in Dane County. What do we need in Monona?
That leads actually to another comment regarding an update on staffing.
Yeah, I was just
Because I
wondering.
think that's one of our pieces here as well, of the balance of staff prioritizing of time. And so I know, Doug, you've been really trying to balance that and to figure out like how to balance that piece. And this is one of those items. Are you able to share your staffing update?
Yes, so I'm pleased to say we have an accepted offer with a October 1st, so that October 3rd would be the Monday of that. An assistant planner will be
Yay.
starting at the city.
Oh, excellent.
So it'll be a part-time position, sort of a professionalization of the role that Elisa previously had. They have a sort of planning training background as well. So looking forward to that. They'll have sort of a range of responsibilities that will include some plan commission components, but they'll also have sustainability and landmarks as well. So it's a little bit of a sort of catch-all in some ways, with ownership and leadership on certain things, but also just helping with the workload as well. So.
Which I think that this is, there have been a few different items over time that I know I've asked for, regarding density of different projects and different things that help us then make decisions. And it's not always the easiest to put at the top of your list of what to do. And having, I think, an additional staff member will help us make sure that some of those things that are important for us that might fall off the plate get back on the plate. So.
Yeah, I was wondering about if we were going to get another intern, so better.
Chris, number 2.
I'm fine, thanks.
Oh, no, I don't have anything.
All right.
I just, every time Chris brings up the thing about the condos, I agree with him 100%.
Yeah, we need the info, and I know the other balancing act, and so we got to get it.
We need the info, but right now the majority of the people here are saying we need to focus on something other than just apartments in Monona. We need a diversity of housing stock, and continuing to take more apartments and improving more apartments is not a diversity of housing stock.
Yeah.
There's a problem in Madison too. There aren't any new condos in Madison either. Yeah. Just tons of new luxury apartment buildings.
And I wonder if one way to connect it, is this the last meeting I get to chair for a while?
I think it is.
I was going to say, I can propose agenda items, but I'm not sure if they'll end up on there. Is the idea of like pulling our previous plan on what it was regarding housing. Like, there is a starting point to make sure that we get some reorientation of like what was our housing plan, where are we at, and then being able to help get some of those metrics together. And that would, I think, help us drive that conversation about where do we go from here, how do we give appropriate feedback when there are proposals coming forward, so they know before they come up to a pre-hearing conference, if we're saturated in apartments, they're going to hear and shouldn't be disappointed when they hear if you're proposing apartments, we're really struggling to meet our housing needs based on that.
When is our next comp plan revision?
A couple of years?
It would have to be by 26.
Okay.
Just by law, but certainly that's something with this position coming on, even part-time, they have experience. They've written some different chapters, different planning documents. So certainly something with this additional, hopefully, bandwidth that it creates, something I want to look to, ideally not right at 10 years, but in advance of that. Because I think these are all issues that are bubbling up that I think a larger policy discussion would benefit as well to give that direction.
Thank you.
For our last comp plan update.
Yeah.
I think we started about 2 years before it was due, and it took that long.
It did.
Right.
And so my guess is
Because we did chapters at a time. Tomorrow.
we did a section at a time, and it's hard even with a part-time planner. It's a lot of work. So I would think if it's in 26, that probably by 24 we should be talking about it and starting to put some things together.
Absolutely.
Well, and to his point, even sooner if we can, especially for some of the chapters, because it would help.
Well, you can't adopt one chapter.
No, I'm not saying adopt it, but starting to gather the data and looking at the data and thinking about how that's going to come together to.
Yeah, it definitely gives the fresh direction and kind of solidifies that, and gives that to staff and to potential applicants. It gives them that, message as well. So I think that's important.
How's the 2020 status of the census data? Is that starting to be disseminated better? I know it's like coming in pieces.
It's really trickling through. It still is. There are certain resources that we use to pool census data that have been taken down and that are being updated. But yeah, I looked last week and census data is still not available fully.
So 2020.
Yeah.
All right. 8, our favorite item. Motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's usually Rob's item.
All right. Thank you. We're adjourned.